I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings in my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, which airs out of the People's Republic of Ann Arbor on Wham Talk 1600 in our Freedom Bunker, every Sunday from starting at 2 Eastern. You can stream our show live by just going to davejanda.com, hitting the listen live button. Great guests, great analysis. Many people have said they believe it's the best radio show in our country on the weekends, and some people believe that's actually true for all radio shows. I'm a bit biased. I obviously agree with him, but our guest lineup every week is second to none. Our analysis is second to none. The podcasts are available. They're part of our subscription service, in addition to getting our 4 to 5 other video format shows that we provide every week to our subscription subscribers and subscription service, along with our email alert system. Available for 30 cents a day, $9 a month. It's every month charge, so you don't sign up for a year and then are caught into something. But you'd love to be caught into this, because our information and analysis, again, is second to none. And a lot of that it's because of our secret sauce, if you will. It are the contacts I've developed over the past 37 years in D.C. and around the world that are fighting for freedom behind the curtain. And they provide information to me to deliver to those who want to listen. One of the big problems, it's sad but true, is, my formula is I tell people what they need to know, and it might not be what they want to hear. And you, as a listener, obviously a viewer, you're willing to take that information, good, bad, and the ugly, and build upon it. And use it in your life to protect yourself, to put you ahead of the curve, to educate others by providing and providing that information to others. There are all too many people that just want to become disengaged. And when you deliver the bad and the ugly part, just don't want to hear it. And I don't get kicks out of delivering it. But I have found that if I hold back that information, I'm not helping you. So I thank you for being here. I hope you'll go to davejanda.com, partake of our public information, but where the real meat of the matter is, where I discuss issues and topics that I cannot discuss on social media platforms because of the ongoing censorship, and it's severe, ongoing, or on the radio because of the FCC. We're there at davejanda.com. I want to start by a quote from the first president who recognized my efforts in prevention and healthcare cost containment and brought me in as a consultant on healthcare policy, and that was Ronald Reagan. And a couple years before he did that, which was in 1988, he was at a press conference on August 12th of 1986. And President Reagan said, quote, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, quote, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help,' end quote." Well, profound words that ring true ever more so today. The topic of today's presentation is about it's worse than incompetence. We have seen over many decades' time a degradation of our constitutional republic. And it's not an accident, and it's not a coincidence, and all too many people put it on, well, it's just incompetence. No, it's willful. The United States of America, and the West, for that matter, are the speed bumps, the roadblocks for the institution of a worldwide totalitarian regime that strips every person of their freedom and liberty, strips them of their health, strips them of their financial well-being, strips them of their future. And it's worse than incompetence. Henry Ford, I'm based in the state of Michigan, if you want to call it that. It's actually a POW camp, and the Colonel Klink of Commandant's Gretchen Whitmer is the commandant. But right here in the state of Michigan, it was known at one point as the automotive capital of the world, and in particular in Detroit. And one of the most profound names, if you will, well-known names in the automotive industry has been Henry Ford. Henry Ford once said, again, about the government, that, remember what Reagan said, right? They're not there to help you, really. Yeah. Here's what Henry Ford said, quote, "Any man who thinks, or woman thinks that they can be happy and prosperous by letting the government take care of them, better take a look at the Native American Indian." End quote. Yeah. It's not pretty. And here's what else isn't pretty. What our government has morphed into. As opposed to serving the public, they have morphed into, you, the public, will serve me in government. And I'll stuff as much of your hard-earned tax dollars in my pocket, even though I'm telling you that we're going to spend it somewhere else on something to help others. All they're doing is helping themselves. And one of the ways they've been able to pull this off is the degradation of the rule of law. Oh, we've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. Ed Martin, who was nominated by President Trump to be the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. Very powerful position. For example, the former U.S. Attorney under the Biden-Harris goat rodeo regime was responsible for the persecution of thousands of individuals that happened to show up in Washington, D.C. in early January of 2021. Well, that goon's out of there. And President Trump had named Ed Martin. Ed Martin had the track record of being really tough. Fair, but really tough on the syndicate. Good. And he held that position for a number of weeks. And then the Republican, remember, one political party in Washington, as I've told you for 15 years on the radio, one political party called the Republicrats, owned and operated by a criminal banking syndicate, the globalists. The rhinos and the Republicans, they're all in the same, blocked Ed Martin from getting confirmed for that job on a permanent basis. Now, President Trump has nominated Jeanine Pirro. Let's see what happens there. But when President Trump ended up having to pull Ed Martin's nomination recently because the R's were being told by their globalist handlers, don't let this guy can't get in there. He's going to make all of our lives very difficult as globalists. Good, but they blocked it. So President Trump then said, okay, Ed, we're going to put you at the Department of Justice. We want you digging deep on the abuse of American citizens through the Department of Justice in previous administrations. Because there's ample evidence there of it. And he made him the director of Weaponization Working Group, Associate Deputy Attorney General, and Pardon Attorney to look at these auto pen pardons. More of that in a little bit. And Ed Martin was recently interviewed. And he was asked about what they're trying to clean up at the Department of Justice and what he's seen so far. And he was asked the question, well, what's happening there? I mean, is what's happened with the rule of law, is that just incompetence? And he said, quote, "It feels worse than incompetence." And then he described the issues facing the current Department of Justice and says, in looking at this and dissecting it out, it's, quote, "It's much, much worse than people think," end quote. And it's not just there in the Department of Justice where there's a problem. Now, to date, in the current Department of Justice, under the direction of Attorney General Pam Bondi, to date, we haven't seen much as far as grand juries, indictments, prosecution, people in handcuffs. If you look at the same time period during the Biden-Harris regime, there was all kinds of action, right? Just think of those thousands of people that were being indicted immediately. Not 120, 140, 150 days in. It was like 5 days in. It's been very concerning, this lack of action. Well, we have to go through the records. Stop. The records have been there for decades. President Trump was president before. There were records there that had been looked into. Bring those people back in that were raising a red flag 5 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Come on. You already got a foundation with those people. Utilize them and let's get off your can. Well, we'll see. My concern is that the Department of Justice, we're going to, we surely don't want to morph into the Jeff Sessions. Remember, that was the first Attorney General for President Trump in the 1.0 administration. That, oh, it's coming, it's coming, and nothing ever happened. Boy, if we have that now, we're in deep, deep trouble. And it isn't just the Department of Justice. Look at the Doge. Love or hate Elon Musk, they've done a lot of good work. He's cut his hours way back. I don't think that's good. I think he upsets the syndicate with him wandering around the White House and around Washington. And the real concern is that, Doge unearthed a tremendous amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that the Republican-led House and Senate in Washington have not done anything to codify those identification of the fraud, waste, and abuse into that big, beautiful bill that would gut many of these programs that were found to be just horrendous. And remember, Musk and his team, the Dogistas, they found that in the Treasury Department, Department of Health and Human Services, and in the Pentagon, that they had 13 computers they came up with that they're called magic money computers that are fabricating money and sending it all over the country and world without any documentation. That's more than incompetence, folks. It's more than incompetence. And it's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. Here's the word. Criminal. That's right. And when you have criminal activity, your Department of Justice should be all over that. Just as an easy layup. Find out the people that were on those 13 computers fabricating money and bring them in, question them immediately, and indict them. And make it public. Not happening. It's more than incompetence. At a recent cabinet hearing, RFK Jr. dropped a bombshell. Accuses Biden's Health and Human Services Department of being complicit in child trafficking. This is from Jim Hev. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has accused Joe Biden's Department of Health and Human Services of being actively complicit in one of the most disturbing scandals in American history. The trafficking of vulnerable migrant children for sex, labor, and slavery. This occurred at a high-level cabinet meeting in the public portion. Quote, this is Kennedy, quote, "We have ended Health and Human Services, their role as a factor and the principal factor in this country for child trafficking." He went on. Quote, "During the Biden administration, Health and Human Services became a collaborator in child trafficking for sex and for slavery. We've ended that. We're now very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration." They were never lost. They know where they're at. And they trafficked them. That's criminal. Where are the prosecutions? That's an easy layup. Bondi, where are you? Patel, where are you? Bongino, where are you? The thousands of others in the FBI. Where are you? They're too busy doing Fox interviews. Right? Fox. If we had as many arrests as interviews Pam Bondi has done on Fox News, it would be great. Even a half of them. Or 1/10 of them. And then the latest thing was you had Bongino and Patel, who I have been supportive of, but boys, being interviewed by Marita Bartiromo recently. There's no there when it comes to Epstein and what happened to him. And there's no there in what happened in Butler, PA on J13. What? You expect us to... Okay, if there isn't, put the records. And they said, well, we reviewed the records. Records that were created by who? Criminals who perpetrated those crimes. Of course the records are going to be sanitized. Come on. When they do that kind of stuff, they're treating you and me and every American like we're all fools. They should be ashamed of themselves. And speaking of being ashamed of themselves, how about that scum, Jim Comey? On the beach, find 8647. I don't know what that means. Former director of the FBI. Come on. It's common knowledge what 86 means. It means to somebody. 86, taking somebody eight miles out of town and putting them 6 feet down in the ground. Right, 86. 47, President Trump is the 47th president. Now, if that were you or me that did that, we would have been immediately brought in, immediately charged, indicted, charged, and not allowed to see the light of day until the trial occurred, then found guilty, and then put away. But not him. Oh, well, we brought him in, but then he released him. What? Stop it. Now, he's not the first clown that pulled this, globalist clown. There was a globalist clown, commandant here, Gretchen Whitmer. Then in October 2020, when she was the co-chair of Biden's campaign, by the way, when she was the co-chair of Biden's campaign in 2024, she didn't notice that he had any mental acuity problems. Stop. Lying sack of garbage she is. But in 2020, she's doing an interview on Meet the Press talking about how bad President Trump was at the time. And right next to her, there's these little blocks, and they say 8645. Let me tell you something. I called a bunch of people in D.C. and around and said, law enforcement, said, bring her in for questioning. This is nuts. She's threatening the president. Did they? No. Meanwhile, and Rudy Giuliani brought this up. Rudy Giuliani says Comey's call for Trump raises red flags about his daughter and son-in-law who are working under Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice. You want to know why things aren't going on? His daughter, Comey's daughter, was one of the prosecuting attorneys for Epstein, for Ghislaine Maxwell, the person who was actually running the show, Ghislaine Maxwell, not his administrative assistant. She was the brains. He was the front. So Epstein ends up, and Maxwell, well, we're not going to let that information out over who the Johns were. We're just, who were abusing the kids, because we're just going to, Pam Bondi. 3 months now. Those files were going to come out. They were on her desk. What? What'd they do? Did they evaporate? Come on. And it's not incompetence, please. So the daughter, Comey's daughter, is in this up to her eyeballs. And her husband, Lucas Isharoff, is also an attorney in the Southern District of New York. Well, what are they doing there? Out! And she's also involved in P. Diddy's prosecution You know, the guy who's working for the intelligence agency only on the West Coast, as opposed to Epstein, who's working on the East Coast. This is not incompetence. This is complicit criminality in trying to cover up their crimes over an extended period of time. And President Trump recently said it, okay? He started focusing on this auto pen issue, which makes one wonder constitutionally if anything that was signed on these major issues like pardons and the like are valid. That's a constitutional question. I'm sure that's probably going to end up in the hands of the Supreme Court, whatever that means. And that isn't incompetence either, by the way. President Trump recently stated this. Whoever had control of the auto pen is looking to be bigger and bigger scandal by the moment. It is a major part of the real crime that the presidential election of 2020 was in fact rigged. Millions and millions of people knew that, but the radical left Democrats, globalists, waged a campaign of inoculation and innocence like none that had ever been waged before. This is why the unselect committee of political thugs that we're looking at, J6, who were given a full and complete pardon by the person who wielded the now illegally used auto pen, they then deleted and destroyed all evidence and information from their corrupt and vicious witch hunt against me and many other people whose lives were completely shattered and destroyed by this historically criminal event. All true. He went on. Remember, it all began with the dirty cop, James Comey, Obama, a hapless and cognitively impaired sleepy Joe Biden, and my now very famous accusation that, quote, they spied on my campaign, end quote. And folks, we brought this to you not in 2020. General Tom McInerney, with the assistance of Admiral Ace Lyons, for the first time on radio or TV, came on our radio show Operation Freedom Live and blew the whistle on what those globalist thugs, Obama, Biden, Brennan, their director of CIA, Clapper, director of national intelligence, Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton, plus a number of others, Comey, Mueller, were involved in the illegal surveillance utilizing a platform called the Hammer on then President-elect Trump, but at the time he was campaigning to be president for Trump 1.0, General Flynn, and thousands of others. We were demonized. There were people in the independent media that came after us. They're not so independent. All those that came after us are globalist shills, owned and operated by the globalist syndicate and, in particular, the intelligence agencies. That's right. They're not many of these people you see in the independent media are controlled. They're bought and paid for. I know. Makes me mad too. Just go back in time. Who was pointing the finger at us that we were bad people for bringing this out? And you're going to find out who's owned and operated by the syndicate. President Trump goes on. Whoever had control of the auto pen is just the beginning. That's right. The biggest crime of all is that the 2020 presidential election was rigged. MAGA won that election by millions of votes, and everyone knows it. God bless America, for the fight has just begun. Yes, that's right. For some of us. Some people are going to be on the couch. Some people don't want to hear about things. Some people don't want to be bothered. Many people are the criminals that are hoping everybody's just going to forget about all this. And J6 was the cleanup operation run by the globalist controlled government to bury the fraudulent and stolen event in November of 2020. And just as this auto pen issue generates more and more steam, we hear about all of a sudden the special prosecutor's interview of Biden is released, where he's shown to be what I was telling you for years, il demente. And then, of course, we got the diagnosis of prostate cancer. We don't want to see a diagnosis like that for anybody. But it makes one wonder, when did they really make that diagnosis? And it wasn't from incompetence they missed it, right? No. Well, it happens that he's had at least six of these. And the studies have shown there's a direct correlation between many of these and the big C. That's not a conspiracy theory, it's true. Look at some of the studies cited by the McCullough Foundation on this. They're there. So they were hiding, and it was evident to us. But when we spoke about the mental degradation of this guy, look, I like Johnny Carson. I watch Johnny Carson reruns. Johnny Carson in 1991 on his television show was hooting and hollering about what a demented fool Joe Biden was back in 1991. But when all of us were bringing it up while he was vice president, let alone running for president, we were horrible people. There's no evidence of that. Joe Scarborough, he's sound, he's fine. Jake Tapper, he's sound and fine. Now Jake Tapper's coming out with a book to make millions of dollars. Oh yeah, we knew there was we can't believe we were fooled by the people around him. Stop. It was all a con, a criminal con that put our country in danger. And a political analyst, I'll close with this, recently said the following, and it's so on target. So it seems the deep state took a career politician with dementia and cancer, because remember, this is a slow-going cancer. Although with these, you get the high speed, right? So-called turbo, like the turbo car, turbo effect. Look it up. So it seems the deep state took a career politician with dementia and cancer, staged a riot to certify his mathematically improbable installation, arrested anyone who contested it, sanctioned an invasion, weaponized the courts, silenced speech, I'm going to add mandated a bioweapon, and turned the United States into Sodom and Gomorrah, end quote. That is so on target. So what do? We hold everybody's feet to the fire. I encourage you to call your congressman, your senator, the White House, the governor, your state rep, your member, your state senator, your local politician. Say, what are you doing about all this? This is not incompetence. What are you doing about this criminality? I know we got a new sheriff in town, but guess what? The sheriff might be fine, but the people around the sheriff, they're a bunch of do-nothings so far. Get them off dead center. If they're not going to get off dead center, get them out. Tell them the people are wise. It makes a big difference. If these clowns in politics know that you're on to their con and you call them out on it, they scatter like cockroaches. Oh, geez, they're aware if I'm going to remain in my big, fat, comfy leather chair with all my bennies and keep being elected, I got to, no matter how we try to steal it, if there's enough of them and they got to figure it out, I'm in jeopardy, so I got to do something. Yeah, that's how they think. I'm not saying you be horribly mean to them. You confront them, though. Peacefully, patriotically, with the information I just gave you. That's more than enough to get them to move off a dead center. I thank you for joining us today. Again, join us at DaveJanda.com. Listen to the radio show. Starts at 2 o'clock Eastern Time every Sunday. Join us. We're there. The remainder of our content I produce only at DaveJanda.com. Doesn't go anywhere else. Join us there. Become a member of our Freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thank you for joining me today.